Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Boy, do we have a lot of good news today. At least, good in relative terms. You'll see. Reminder that you're on your own for Saturday news. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. Thank you for supporting the entire Yang Daily community. It appears that Biden has finally stepped up and acknowledged the importance of cash relief. When asked about the new bipartisan bill, he said that he supports it even though it's far from perfect, because people need aid right now and, quote, if you insist on everything, you're likely to get nothing, end quote. But he also said that further relief must follow and, quote, I think it would be better if they had the $1,200, and I understand that may still be in play, end quote. He took his sweet time, and it's not recurring checks, but it's progress. It's also good to hear he thinks it's still possible for it to be included because he's more informed on what's going on in there than we are. Time to let your representatives know that recurring stimulus to the people should be their top priority. Forget the bureaucracy, go straight to the source. Mayors for a Guaranteed Income have produced their own petition for cash relief that you can sign at the link below. This debate over relief, of course, taking place as the pandemic hits all-time highs and redoubles the slowdown in economic recovery. The jobs improvement has adopted a very pronounced logarithmic shape, with each month seeing significantly less jobs re-added than the last. It's nearing zero growth. There's a great graph of this in the links below. The unemployment numbers are also looking bad. The employment number has pretty much flattened and people are dropping out of the workforce after being unemployed for so long. There's a table in the links for the last 4 months to help you visualize. In better news, Biden's pick for chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, Cecilia Rouse, has made some encouraging comments around UBI. In a recent interview, she talked about the need for more redundancy and resilience in the economy and to spread out more of the benefits of the labor market. She affirmed that the dignity of work is important, but added, quote, I don't want to pretend that I absolutely know what that looks like. Universal basic income is one way that happens. We economists have really been pushing the goal of efficiency, and I worry that in the process, we've lost a little bit on our humanity, end quote. So, not a convert yet, but for a top official to be openly discussing UBI as a solution is huge progress. It's looking more and more like Yang was right in seeing Biden's administration as a major opportunity for UBI. Some good news as well out of the House yesterday, as a bill to decriminalize marijuana and expunge criminal records for possession passed, though by a narrow margin and very much on partisan lines. 97% of Democrats voted for it and 97% of Republicans voted against. That should tell you all you need to know about how likely it is to get through the Senate. I guarantee McConnell will not even allow a vote. Just one more reason to put your heart and soul into winning the Georgia runoffs. So much is possible for this country if we take those 2 seats. Let's get it done. The Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Bill in the House just reached a milestone of 2,000 endorsements from prominent figures, including 862 businesses, 126 faith groups, 123 local governments, and 216 nonprofits, in addition to the 82 co-sponsors. This is easily one of the best bills in Congress, as it is a combination of a carbon tax with a recurring cash grant to the people, mitigating both climate change and financial insecurity at the same time. Check the website below to see if your representatives' names are on the list and tell them to get it together if they're not. On that note, the renowned magazine Scientific American appears to be on a roll. After breaking precedent in denouncing Trump as anti-science, they have now published an opinion piece in favor of UBI. The article is rather intriguing. The author, James Boyce, looks at American politics as, broadly, a struggle between factions who disagree on where to strike the balance between equality and liberty, though we all value both. He says, quote, the notion that equality is the enemy of liberty and vice versa is founded on the view that government is the ultimate guarantor of equality and private property is the ultimate guarantor of liberty. The balance between equality and liberty thus morphs into a balance between the state and the market, end quote. Pretty standard so far. He goes on to frame the outcome of capitalism versus socialism or communism as the difference between elites of the free market controlling the people via private property or elites among politicians controlling the people via public power, and both relishing economic inequality either way. Quote, neither private property nor state-owned property is sufficient to guarantee equality and liberty for all. The first can allow economic elites to monopolize wealth and power, and the second can allow political elites to do the same. End quote. This perspective I find concise and clarifying. This leads him into Alaska's form of UBI, the Alaskan Permanent Fund, sourced from dividends from investments made with money from oil companies that drill the land. From this, James makes his argument, which he takes from Peter Barnes. Quote, the permanent fund is neither private property nor public property in the conventional sense. Unlike public property, the right to the revenue belongs to the people, not the government. Unlike private property, this right cannot be bought or sold, owned by corporations, or concentrated in a few hands. It is universal property. End quote. He proposes to extend the Alaskan model of universal property to not just natural resources, but social constructs as well, to include the legal and institutional architecture of the financial system. Quote, the gifts of society and the gifts of nature would be treated as a joint inheritance belonging to all, universal property. Those who benefit from using them would pay according to their use, and the money received would be paid out equally to all. If implemented on a significant scale, universal property would inoculate society against extreme inequality. It would provide an asset-based source for a universal basic income, not dependent on redistributive taxation. Charging for use of the sky's carbon absorption capacity would help stabilize the Earth's climate by curbing emissions. Similarly, financial transaction taxes would help stabilize the economy by curbing hair-trigger speculation. Universal property is a bold idea that does not fit neatly into old labels. It would advance equality and liberty together, and by bringing everyone into the same boat as co-owners, it would help bridge the divides that keep us apart. End quote. In other words, he basically ends up the same place as Yang's policy, proposing financial transaction taxes, carbon dividends, and UBI. Even the VAT could be said to fall into it, as that is taxing our economic infrastructure and giving the money back equally as opposed to income taxes. It would also fit Scott's land tax, as that treats all land as universal property that is only rented. Anyway, an interesting perspective that seemed worth sharing, and cool to see UBI find its way into this magazine. Guy Standing also framed the concept in a recent article saying, quote, a basic income is a recognition of our collective social and ecological inheritance, the true source of wealth. End quote. Basic Income Quotes shared a UBI graphic that I really like. It portrays some of the biggest civil rights advances in American history and fits UBI in as the next step. I think that's the appropriate way to look at it. Access to food, shelter, and other basic needs should be a human right, not a lever of exploitation. Let's fix that. In media news, Yang visited the Vote Her podcast to talk about his political journey, the Georgia runoffs, his Win Both Seats organization, Dave Chappelle, and more. Speaking of, Andrew announced that Win Both Seats just surpassed $2 million in donations to grassroots organizers. That money will be vital to funding the most cost-effective methods of boots-on-the-ground advocacy. Our future depends on the work that they are doing. Let's keep it going. Obama hosted a virtual rally for the Georgia races with Stacey Abrams, Ossoff, Warnock, and Nikema Williams. And finally, Jermaine Johnson had his official swearing in as Congressman of South Carolina, and Yang came down to join him for the event. I'm sure Andrew is thrilled to see someone from his campaign make it into the office, even more than we are. Congrats, Jermaine. It's a win well deserved. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Let Biden know he's on the right track. Congratulate Jermaine. Sign the UBI petition. Bookmark and share the labor force data, the weed bill passing, the carbon dividend progress, the Scientific American article, and the civil rights graphic. Don't forget to put in your half hour a day of phone banking or text banking to support the efforts in Georgia. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.